Councillor, what do you think?
It's pretty cool.
Have you met Joe? Come on up and meet Parzan. This is Councillor Compadich. You can just stay there. He'll come right over. This is our mayor for Parzan, Councillor Compadich. Yeah. We raised the flag. Yeah, we did a lot. That's good. He's been telling Alan what to do for the last hour. Okay, so see that? So that means that we're live here. So I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's council meeting. I'd like to thank our broadcast partners and our media partners who are broadcasting and reporting on tonight's meeting. I'm going to have my co-mayor for a day here start the meeting. So,
Madam Clerk, please start the meeting.
Under Agenda Item 1, Adoption of Minutes, I have a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Turcot resolved that minutes of the regular council meeting September 10, 2018 be approved.
All in favor?
Carried. Okay. Madam Clerk, continue.
Under Agenda Item 3, Declarations of Pecuniary Interest.
Okay, so Councillor Turcot.
Council Turco?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 6.19, bylaw enforcement, and also relevant bylaw with that, 11.13, spouse employed by police services.
Councillor Giannetti?
That's a mouthful for you, young man. Item 6.2, Port of Algoma agreements. I'm employed by this company.
Any other councillors in conflict or any matters? Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
Councillor Kabadic?
The same conflict as Councillor Randanetti.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kompadich. Madam Clerk?
Under Agenda Item 4, I have a motion by Councillor Shoemaker and Nero resolved that agenda for September 24, 2018 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Carried. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, our first matter
Is Agenda Item 5.1, Mayor for the Day, Person Umriger.
So, everybody, welcome. We're very excited to be here with you and with our mayor for a day, Perzan Umriger. Perzan is a student in Lisa Roy's class, grade 5 class at Holy Cross, and his video submission was selected as the winner of the Mayor for a Day contest, our third annual Mayor for a Day contest. Once again, we received submissions from across our community, and one of the reasons why we launched this contest in 2016 was to increase civic engagement with our youth, and the submissions we received demonstrated an impressive understanding of local governance along with a passion for our community. On that note, we are now going to play Parzan's submission, which he sent to us by video.
Hello everyone, I am Parzan Umriger, Mayor of the Sault only for today. Why be mayor? To ensure that every cent of our tax money is best utilized. As a mayor, I would launch Project Sponsor a Sidewalk. Just imagine how nice you would be walking past a colorful and inviting sidewalk. While one would be vibrant as a rainbow, others would let us know the latest shoes available in the market. Some creative advertising minds could even have light projections at night. This would bring out even non-walkers outside. What a great way to get healthy. I am sure that today's technology will figure out a way to maintain the same even in winters. And wait, don't you guys think that the city has to spend on all of this? Sponsoring businesses will make all these investments. That too after paying a sponsorship fee. So now, you see how residents' hard-earned tax money going towards sidewalk maintenance can be saved? Isn't that great? A win-win for all. Business promotion for sponsors, additional income to the city, and an awesome experience for all. for all residents, new job opportunities as a bonus. So what do you say about project sponsor a sidewalk? Finally, the things I like best about the Sault are, firstly, Bonsu, our winter carnival. Secondly, very sweet and welcoming people. Lastly, the natural beauty in and around the Sault. Thank you.
I think you could probably see why this video made it out of the pile and was the one that we selected. I thought it was really insightful how Tarzan kind of took the ideas of a public responsibility, sidewalk development, and figured out a way to incorporate the private sector into that, try to find a way to create jobs, and also was trying to look for a way to minimize the municipal burden in city taxes. So it was really well-rounded. But what really spoke to me outside of those points was the end, and what he loved about his community, and the fact that he sees us to be a kind and welcoming place, and he likes Bonsu, which I think is fantastic. So we thought he was a great example of a really great submission, and we want to congratulate him for doing that. And I want to thank some other people who participated. So along with opening this meeting, we gave Tarzan and his family a tour of the Civic Center, and we raised a flag together. And I will be going to his class to have a pizza party sometime. I think that's already booked sometime in the next couple of weeks. He will also be attending the Rotary Club of Sault Ste. Marie North, a breakfast with his family. The Rotary Club of Sault Ste. Marie North is instrumental to and has been central to this project from its beginning. And I want to recognize them and thank them. And tonight we have Jen and Bill and Norm with us. And they work with us, and they go through all of the dozens and dozens, over 100 submissions. And all these good folks go through them all, and we pare them down. So I want to really recognize the Rotary Club North's civic-mindedness and its submission and its contribution to this. What we're going to do now is we're going to call Rotary Club North up, and we're going to present our mayor for a day with a medal to recognize his day right in front here. So if I can have the Rotary Club North come up, please. We've got to go out around the front. Okay. Got this for you. Hold that up like this. Look at me. Perfect. Thank you. We can move this chair off. Okay. We'll just give the clerk a second to lose the extra chair.
Under Agenda Item 5.2, Access to Justice Week, Mary Pascuzzi, lawyer and member of the Algoma District Law Association Board of Directors and co-chair of the Access to Justice Committee, and Gwen McDonald, Director of Child Protection, Mediation, and Access to Justice Committee member.
Welcome to Council.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Mayor, councilors, city staff, guests in the gallery, and TV and online viewers. My name is Mary Pascuzzi. I'm a local lawyer and a member of the Algoma District Law Association Board of Directors. And with me is Gwen McDonald, Director of Child Protection Mediation. We are also members of the Access to Justice Committee, and there are a few more of our members in the gallery just behind us supporting us today. We're in attendance today, Mr. Mayor, to request you and Council to proclaim October 22nd to the 26th Access to Justice Week. We're here a bit early since this is the last meeting before the election, which I know you all know is October 22nd. A local Access to Justice Committee convened in early August to organize an event for Sault Ste. Marie and the Algoma District. We are 9 individuals who work in the justice system in different capacities. Members from the local judiciary, lawyers from the Algoma Bar, Crown Attorney's Office and Community Legal Clinic, as well as mediation services and courthouse administrative staff. The purpose of the event is to educate and engage youth in justice activities and issues. The committee is organizing a one-day event for high school and post-secondary students to take place during Access to Justice Week, specifically on Tuesday, October 23rd.
The committee has sent out invitations to the Sault and Algoma District High School boards and post-secondary institutions for students to participate in this event, promoting and celebrating Access to Justice Week. It will take place at the Sault Ste. Marie Courthouse, where local justice sector partners will make brief presentations at various stations set up in the courthouse. And they will be available for questions from the students about the justice system and their particular organization or agency's role in providing services to this access to the system. We are anticipating that this event will provide our young people with an excellent opportunity to learn about and understand their justice system. And we look forward to staging the event at the courthouse on October 23rd, Tuesday. In this way, we hope to provide a meaningful contribution to access to justice. To that end, Mr. Mayor, would you kindly read the proclamation for Access to Justice Week, October 22nd to 26th?
I'm happy to. Whereas Access to Justice Week is celebrated across the province of Ontario, strives to increase public awareness of the diverse justice stakeholder organizations present across the province and in our community. Whereas Access to Justice Week aspires to ensure all persons have a better understanding of how to access the justice system and to better understand how it functions. And whereas various groups and organizations that are dedicated to helping people to access, navigate, and utilize the justice system will be available to provide information to students attending the Sault Ste. Marie District Courthouse on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. Whereas the Access to Justice event seeks to ultimately strengthen our community and bring the community together to acknowledge and embrace the unique role that the justice system plays in our community. Now therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim October 22nd to October 26th, 2018 as Access to Justice Week and invite student members of the community to participate in and benefit from the information sessions and activities presented during the proclaimed Access to Justice Week. Thank you, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.3, Hispanic Latin Heritage Month. Sandra Mongue is in attendance.
Welcome to Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councilors. The Northern Hispanic Cultural Association is a non-profit organization since 2013 dedicated to promote and celebrate Hispanic and Latin culture and heritage. We strive to enhance cultural awareness and enrich our community, sharing culture and providing experience through the exposure of diverse educational, cultural, and artistic events to further the understanding of our Hispanic Latin culture. Hispanic Latino have had a profound and positive influence in our country through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. They have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their community and diversity of experience. Ontario is home to more than 400,000 first, second, and third generation of Canadians of Hispanic origin. As early as 1914, Canadians who originate from the 23 Hispanic countries began immigrating to the province of Ontario, and today the Hispanic community is one of the fastest growing in Ontario. In fact, in 2011, almost 900,000 people declared Spanish as their native language and reported Latin American, Brazilian and Portuguese speaking, and Spanish origins. This number is growing each and every year. Hispanic Canadians represent a dynamic community that has made significant contributions to the growth and prosperity of the province of Ontario. Hispanic Latin Heritage Month, whose roots go back in 1914, begins each year on September 15 with the anniversary of independence of 5 Latin American countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, and Belize. Also celebrate the Independence Days during this period. October 12 is the day of the race, or Columbus Day, Día de la Raza. Latin Americans and the Hispanic community in Canada have made significant contribution to the social, economic, and political fabric of the nation. October is Hispanic Heritage Month, and during National Hispanic Heritage Month, we recognize the contributions, celebrate, and learn more the many achievements and contributions of all Hispanic people in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a proclamation to read for you. Whereas in October 26, 2016, the House of Commons officially recognized October as Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas in June 20th, 2018, the House of Commons officially recognized under the Bill S-218 the Latin American Heritage Month. And whereas the Hispanic community in Canada was established by a few thousand Spanish immigrants in 1914, the first significant surge in immigration came during the 1970s, which was a time of great socioeconomic and political turbulence across Spanish-speaking countries. The Hispanic community has recently grown significantly in size and has now become one of the most prominent communities in the country. There are approximately 500,000 Canadians of Hispanic origin, but this number is substantially higher when we include non-citizens and permanent residents. Not only this, but the Hispanic community is also one of the fastest growing populations in the entire country. Whereas Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Hispanic Canadians, as well as to share their history, their contributions, and their culture. Now therefore I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2018 as Hispanic Latin Heritage Month in the City of Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you.
Agenda item 5.4, Franco-Ontarian Day. Jessica Torrance, President, Centre Francophone de Sault Ste. Marie, is in attendance.
Welcome to Council.
Thank you. I will say this in French first, then I will repeat it in English. Chers amis concitoyens, bonjour et bienvenue. Je me présente Jessica Torrance, présidente du Centre francophone de Sault Ste. Marie. Je suis très heureuse d'être ici ce soir pour célébrer une journée très spéciale. Les Franco-Ontariens et les Franco-Ontariennes ont maintenant une journée afin de se rassembler pour célébrer le 43e anniversaire du drapeau franco-ontarien et plus de 400 ans de présence française en Ontario. Notre cher drapeau, qui fut dévoilé pour la première fois le 25 septembre 1975 à l'Université Laurentienne de Sudbury, est un symbole d'appartenance. C'est aussi une représentation de notre esprit, de notre désir de vivre pleinement en français, tout en contribuant activement et de façon dynamique au développement de notre communauté. Ce drapeau est la manifestation de notre volonté d'occuper, en Ontario, la place qui nous revient dans le secteur économique, politique et culturel. J'aimerais, au nom du Centre francophone de Sault Ste. Marie et de la communauté francophone, remercier la ville de Sault Ste. Marie d'avoir permis à notre drapeau de flotter au mât principal de l'hôtel de ville. Cela nous fait chaud au cœur, car c'est le témoignage de vouloir vivre ensemble dans l'harmonie et le respect de notre culture. Merci à vous tous d'être ici. Dear fellow citizens, hello and welcome. My name is Jessica Torrance, and I am the president of the Centre francophone de Sault Ste. Marie. I am very happy to be here tonight to celebrate a very special day. Franco-Ontarian now have a day to gather and celebrate the 43rd anniversary of the Franco-Ontarian flag and more than 400 years of French presence in Ontario. Our dear flag who was unveiled for the first time on September 25, 1975, at Laurentian University in Sudbury, is a symbol of belonging. It is also a representation of our spirit, of our desire to live fully in French, while contributing actively and dynamically to the development of our beautiful and diverse community. This flag is a manifestation of our desire to occupy our place in Ontario in the economic, political, and cultural sector. On behalf of the Centre francophone de Sault Ste Marie and the French community, I would like to thank the City of Sault Ste Marie for allowing our flag to float on the main mast at City Hall. This warms our hearts because it is a testimony of wanting to live together in harmony and respect for our culture. Thank you to all for being here.
Thank you. And I can say that Parzan and I were very happy to raise the flag today.
Thank you.
Whereas by virtue of the Franco-Ontarian Day Act, which was legislated on April 26, 2010, it is declared that September 25th of each year be recognized as Franco-Ontarian Day throughout the province of Ontario. And whereas the Franco-Ontarian Day Act 2010 recognizes that Franco-Ontarians commemorate September 25th to celebrate their culture, language, and heritage, and also take pride in their collective accomplishments. And whereas the Franco-Ontarian Emblem Act 2001 recognizes the flag as the emblem of the Francophone community of Ontario, and whereas French is one of two official languages of Canada, and the French language has been spoken in Ontario since the 17th century. And whereas Franco-Ontarian Day has become an annual occasion to celebrate with the Francophone community of Sault Ste. Marie. Now therefore I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim September 25th, 2018 as Franco-Ontario Day, and join the Francophone community of Sault Ste. Marie in celebrating its contribution to Ontario's growth and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.5, Fire Prevention Week. Aaron Gravel, public educator with Fire Services, is in attendance.
Welcome to Council, Mr. Gravel.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of Council, ladies and gentlemen, as a representative for Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services, I come before you today to have Fire Prevention Week proclaimed once again. The Fire Prevention Week theme for 2018 is Look, Listen, Learn, Be Aware. Fire can happen anywhere. The Fire Service recommends that residents look for places fire could start, listen to the sound of a smoke alarm, and learn 2 ways out of every room in your home. These fundamentals need to be in place in preparation for an untimely event of a fire emergency. The Sault Ste. Marie Fire Service has been working diligently to prevent these disappointing occurrences. However, we cannot succeed without the citizens of our great city heeding our messages and putting into action the proven recommendations routinely conveyed to the public. This year's Fire Prevention Week campaign encourages families to educate all members of the household of potential fire hazards, know the sound of a smoke alarm to test them every month, create and practice home escape plans, including having 2 ways out of every room, as well as a meeting place outside. Fire Prevention Week personnel will be on hand at numerous locations during Fire Prevention Week this year, speaking with the public and reminding them of things we can do to reduce the likelihood of a fire occurrence. We have been provided with the honor of hosting several events to promote the fire prevention messages that can easily make a difference in the level of safety for our families. They include a Greyhound-sponsored game night on Wednesday, October 10th, a special event, all-you-can-eat wing night at Wacky Wings on Lake Street on October 11th, as well as coffee with the fire services at McDonald's restaurant on Friday, October 12th. Our hope is that by providing an opportunity for people to reinforce basic fire safety principles and learn more about fire safety in a fun and enjoyable environment, future fire tragedies can be avoided within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and provincially, and our homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas many fires that occur in the home result in major property damage, significant personal losses, and in most cases the smoke alarm was not operational. And whereas the Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services believes that all residential fires are predictable and preventable, and our fire service personnel are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. and residents should prepare an escape plan with their families and to ensure they have working smoke alarms on all levels of their homes. And whereas the 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme is look, listen, learn, be aware, fire can happen anywhere. This year's theme focuses on the importance of being aware of how fires can start, the dangers of fires, having proper and working fire protection, as well as learning how to prevent fires from happening. Now therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, as Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim and pronounce the week of October 7th to October 13th, 2018 as Fire Prevention Week, and urge all residents to be aware of the dangers of fire, take action to help prevent fires from happening, be aware of what to do in the event of a fire emergency, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services during Fire Prevention Week 2018. Thank you, Mr. Gravel.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.6, Culture Days. Kathy Fisher, curator of the Ermatinger Clerk National Historic Site, and Helena Hooplainen, manager of community engagement with the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library, are in attendance.
Welcome to Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, and City Council. My name is Kathy Fisher, the curator at the Ermatinger site. With me this evening, we have Helena Hooplainen from the Public Library and Laurie Carlisle from the Art Gallery. She's Vanna tonight. We are here to proclaim Culture Days. Culture Days is September 28th and 29th in Sault Ste. Marie. It's an opportunity for Canadians to explore and participate in cultural activities in their community. It's a provincial and national level grassroots event promoted across our country. We are here to proclaim and invite you to create, participate, and share within Sault Ste. Marie in our international celebrations of culture and the arts. Culture Days is a 2-day event, and we are fully on beat.
On Friday, September 28th, from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., Culture Days in Sault Ste. Marie will encompass the J.L. McIntyre Centennial Library, the Art Gallery of Algoma, and the Ermatinger Clerk National Historic Site. Included in our partnership in the event is the Sioux Community Career Center and Sault Ste. Marie and Area Local Immigration and Partnership, and the Arts Council. Culture Days will continue at the Ermatinger Clerk National Historic Site with a reminder there will be cannon firing every 15 minutes. Starting this Wednesday to our Fall Festival Education Days. Admission is free, some costs will apply for food, purchases from vendors, and some other activities.
This weekend, Friday and Saturday, activities will be available at both the library and the art gallery, and of course at the Ermatinger site. Special activities on the On Beat theme are Drum Fit, Jingle Dancers and Drumming, Syrian Drumming, Elite Dance Group, Belly Dancers, and Women Who Drum. Come out on the Professional Development Day and join in and participate. Friday is those specific activities, as many will continue on Saturday. Visit our cultural institutions and don't forget that the beat continues all weekend long.
So we ask everyone that our goal of Culture Days is to create, participate, and share. Please join us. Let's enjoy Culture Days.
I have a proclamation here to read. Certainly great timing for this considering the other proclamations that we've had here tonight. Whereas culture constitutes one of the main identity factors of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, of the District of Algoma, and the quality of life of its citizens. Whereas culture is an intrinsic component both of individual and societal development, and culture rises and flourishes first locally. And whereas the City of Sault Ste. Marie of the District of Algoma has already shown its intention to implement projects that affirm both its cultural identity and the active participation of its citizens to the life of the municipality. And whereas the cultural community has set up an annual national event, Culture Days, that will consolidate a number of cultural events under a common theme across Canada by promoting the widest possible access to arts, heritage, and culture. And whereas Culture Days Sault Ste. Marie will allow citizens to create, celebrate, and participate in cultural activities. Now therefore, I, Christian Provenzano, Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie of the District of Algoma, do hereby proclaim September 28th and September 29th, 2018 as Culture Days in the City of Sault Ste. Marie. And I encourage everybody to get out and participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.7, Dennis Kerrigan, President and Chief Operating Officer, Plato Testing, is in attendance regarding agenda item 7.3.1, Plato Testing Economic Development Fund request.
Welcome to Council, Mr. Kerrigan. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Your Grace. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Council, Your Grace, and citizens and my brothers and sisters of the Sault Ste. Marie area. I'm pleased to come here today to represent a company called Plato Testing. It's a professional Aboriginal testing organization incorporated. We're a company that's headquartered out of New Brunswick, but we operate in a number of different provinces across Canada. The thing that makes us different from most other IT service providers is that we are in the process of building and employing a majority Indigenous Canadian workforce. The trip to Sault Ste. Marie for me has been quite a fascinating actually story, and part of our tradition as Indigenous people is stories are important to us. And I won't get into too much detail for you, but my first trip to Sault Ste. Marie was just shortly after Plato Testing was created as a company and shortly after I became president. I came to a business conference here and happened to be introduced to my colleagues at the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center, where I met the Lottery Pursuit team members. And they had questions about who we are and what we're trying to do. And as a company, we're trying to do something that's quite audacious. We're trying to create career opportunities, legitimate career opportunities for First Nation, Métis, Inuit Canadians in information technology. And our goal is to be a company of 1,000 people across Canada. And we're not talking about one office of 1,000 people, we're talking about 20 offices of 50 people. Our goal is using the magic of the knowledge economy. If you consider, I'm from Western Canada, so we go where jobs are, right? So as jobs are kind of located where natural resources are, or where transportation hubs are, or where urban centers are. The magic of the knowledge economy is really that a lot of that is broken. Really, the foundational piece that we have is there reliable high-speed internet into a community? If there is, then we can provide training and we can create jobs in areas where they're not necessarily co-located with a lot of those other traditional things. When I first came to Sault Ste. Marie, I thought, well, this is interesting. I had been through here a number of times, going from west to east and east to west, but I'd never really stopped in and talked to people and met people. And for my first visit here, I was able to visit with Bechuana, Garden River, members of the Métis Nation of Ontario, and of course different stakeholders from the community of Sault Ste. Marie. And it really dawned on me that probably our vision of a company that wants to be operating in Canada, in communities that are not necessarily Calgary or Vancouver or Toronto, and actually bring what we do and make a difference socially in the local community. Sault Ste. Marie makes a lot of sense to us. So that was sort of the first idea. We followed it up with some conversations with the folks at the UP program and the Innovation Center. And over the course of the past 2 years, we've moved from an idea and a couple of good relationships being built to a point where we're now implementing our expansion to Sault Ste. Marie. So we're very excited as a company to be coming to Sault Ste. Marie. We've got a couple of applications into various funding sources. And our intention is over the next 3 to 5 years to create somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 60 jobs in software testing here in Sault Ste. Marie. The bulk of those will be with an Indigenous Canadian workforce, so primarily First Nation and Métis software testers, but very much supported by senior technical resources from our parent company, which will also be situated here in Sault Ste. Marie. If we look at software testing, I know when I first started out, the first question I had is, what the heck is software testing? We soon realized that our world kind of runs on these, and everything that we manage our lives with on these, we expect to work. And the way to make sure that they work is that those various applications are tested by someone. Quite often it's done somewhere other than Canada, and our goal is really to bring those jobs back to Canada and use the competition with an Indigenous Canadian and a Canadian workforce. So with that, I thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you for that presentation. Council, we have a report before us. You're certainly welcome to ask any questions of staff about the report, and we will take questions first and then any comments, and then we can vote in the matter. So are we calling up the resolution, Madam Clerk?
I can read the resolution
Yeah,
now.
if we can read the resolution, please.
I have a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Nero, resolved that the report of the Deputy CAO, Community Development and Enterprise Services, dated September 24, 2018, concerning the EDF application from Plato Testing, Professional Aboriginal Testing Organization, Inc., be approved in the amount of $125,000 for 2018 and $125,000 for 2019, for a total of $250,000.
Okay, Councillor Butland, I think you had your hand up first.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And where'd you go?
Denise, if you can stay down maybe at the mic, Denise, that would be helpful.
Welcome to Sault Ste. Marie, my friend. Where will your headquarters be located? I know in the report it says you're involved with Algoma University, Sault College. Where is your headquarters?
In Sault Ste. Marie, you mean?
Yeah.
Actually, that's part of our next step. So we've looked at a number of locations in the Sault Ste. Marie area. We have to find one that makes sense for us as a company, both in terms of accessibility and proximity to hopefully local clients. We've got our list narrowed down to about 3 different locations. I'm here for the next couple of days, and hopefully, if you ask me that question by the end of the week, I'll be able to tell you.
Gladly. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have a comment.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Bruni then.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess you're pursuing more funding from the provincial or federal government, correct?
That's correct, yes.
What happens if you don't receive that funding?
Well, actually, we've got an agreement in hand with one of the funders, so we're just in the final process of working through the initial preconditions of that. So we've gone from a list of, I think, 7 down to 1. So part of my job here this week is to narrow that one down to 0. We're confident that we have a funding agreement. We just have to sign it and proceed with moving here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other councillors with any? Councillor Fada, then Councillor Christian.
Yeah, I just want to touch on what Councillor Bruni just said in terms of the funding. Maybe I'll ask Mr. Bear if he wants to answer it. We're getting funding from NOHFC, FedNor. Why is the local money required?
So can we have Mr. Bear's mic, please? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fada. Excuse me, similar to other business projects, oftentimes in the past, the EDF fund has been used in concert with NOHFC and FedNor funding, and ultimately it's that combined package that we utilize to help to attract and support companies in Sault Ste. Marie.
In terms of going into the future, if things work out better than expected, do you have a ceiling that you say you probably won't end up with more than 60 people locally? Is that possible that could increase because of what you find here and the success that you find here?
Absolutely it is. In pulling together our project proposal, had to arrive at a number. So we used sort of historical revenue streams and gave basically a conservative estimate of what we could do over the next 3 to 5 years, and 57 was the number that we came up with. If the demand for our services is greater, and if we're able to, we're sort of doing this simultaneously in a number of different communities in Canada. None to this size, should add, but we are offering training across Canada. And with us as a company being sort of a unique mix of services, and certainly our workforce is quite unique, we're finding that the demand for our services is increasing. So what that means quite often is that the first communities that we've established ourselves in, it's just easier to grow our company in those locations. So this would be the 5th center that we would be setting up Plato Testing as an operation. So this would be one of the first to grow.
Just to be clear, since there is local money being invested in terms of our assessment base, I just want to be clear that this will affect our assessment base. Can someone answer that question? I mean, will the location that this is at, will it become part of our assessment base?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fata, as Mr. Kerrigan has stated, they haven't finalized the exact location. I think from the review of the EDF and the application, certainly 57 additional jobs in the community and the benefits that bring to the community are significant. And we feel that warrants support for the program and their potential growth in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation and welcome to Sault Ste. Marie. You'd indicated that this is the 5th location that you're trying to establish now, correct?
Yes.
Your experience, how does this one, in terms of size, potential size, rank with the other ones? Is that the typical business model, looking for about 50 in each location?
That's a number that we've sort of a notional number that we're targeting. So our minimum viable office size, we think, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 testers. But we're situated, there are two companies, right? So there's the parent company, which is situated in more than 4 locations. And then there's Plato Testing. We're right now in Vancouver, Edmonton, Miramichi, New Brunswick, Fredericton, New Brunswick, and then this will be our 5th in Sault Ste. Marie. This would be the largest outside of the Fredericton office. Having said that, our Vancouver operation is growing very quickly as well, based on demand.
As part of your business model, do you have within your corporate structure the ability to, say, shift workload from one location to the other?
Yes. That's part of the nature of the business that we have. A lot of testing work is done overseas, so they usually utilize a model called following the sun. Part of what makes us a bit different is we operate in 4 different time zones in Canada, so effectively we have a 12-hour workday, so we can work during the same hours as some of the companies that we're working with and provide services for their full day.
Thank you. And how do you rate, I guess, how does your business model, how do you rate the performance of any particular site? What are some of the metrics that you would use to say this location is doing well versus that one? I don't really understand the business.
Yeah, it's really utilization rate. So we call billable resources. Each person is a billable resource, and the amount of work or billable projects that individual is assigned to, that determines our utilization rate. Our target rate is around 90 to 95%. 100% is too much because we can't bring in new business, so we target 90 to 95%. I guess an operation that's not working would be below 70%. That's where we get into sort of the break-even scenario.
Right. Two questions left, if you'll indulge me. The other one is, so all of the training and support will be done through the corporation itself, or do you rely on local institutions, say Sault College or anything like that? Any other institutions to support what you people do?
We do. So we own the course that we deliver. We actually own it, and we own it in partnership with Collège Communautaire du Nouveau-Brunswick. So it's a provincial community college in New Brunswick. They're the body that certified our course. Where possible, because we're a for-profit company and not a post-secondary institution, we'll partner with people that are in the business of delivering training, because they have better access normally to networks of people that are interested in getting new skills. And they usually have facilities and instructors and things like that we can leverage.
So you're comfortable that all of that is available here to make this a successful venture?
We've had more than initial discussions with the president of Algoma University, for example, and with some folks at Sault College as well. And then we deal quite normally with the Indigenous training providers, right? So those that are folks that are funded through the assets program through the federal government, for example.
Thank you. One final question. If everything goes as planned, when do you suspect or when do you hope to be operational, and how many people do you believe you'll be starting with?
Our goal is really to actually have our training start before Christmas. We had hoped to get rolling a little bit earlier in the year, so the latest that we would want to start would be just after Christmas or in early January, and that's usually because it's folks if they're in a training program now, they're more likely to be free after Christmas. So we would start with an instructor, probably two instructors actually, and then we have a national sales force. So we would have folks that are here. Basically, when we're training people, we're trying to sell their services, right? So that when they hit the workforce day one, that we're able to pay for their services rather than cover it off from somewhere else in the company.
So number-wise, is starting how many? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. We would start with 15 on the Plato side.
Okay.
And then on the PQA side, it really depends on the amount of work that we would have. So, for example, we're a vendor record for OLG.
Okay.
And part of the application process was to have resources available in Sault Ste. Marie, and that's our intention to do that as well. So it really depends. We're involved with a couple of RFP submissions. It's just a matter of when those are led.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And Councillor Christian took some of my questions, so. But it leads into, you're talking about Sault College and Algoma University, it leads into co-op programs for students, which are quite effective, and also summer students. I know it's still early stages, but you talked about Sault College, Algoma University. Is there going to be opportunity to have a co-op program?
There's always an opportunity to have a discussion. So what our model is basically is that we provide training, basically sector-specific training that would be qualify the person for a junior level position with our company. Any student that passes both the in-class portion, which is 15 weeks, and a paid internship portion, which is 8 weeks, we guarantee them a full-time job offer with our company. So the intention is actually to create employment for the Plato side. If we were to talk about co-op opportunities, it would probably, with a post-secondary institution, it would probably start with the PQA side, because then if we've got somebody who's in a program with computer science or computer applications, something like that, that would be the most logical place for that.
Okay. Thank you. And one last question to Mr. Bear. With regards to the fund, the economic fund development, this is available to obviously new companies. And it's available to existing companies in Sault Ste. Marie if they are expanding and so forth?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, that's correct. It's open to both existing companies and new companies that are looking to expand operations in Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have Councillor Hoopanen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. This question almost piggybacks what Councillor Hollingsworth had asked. Can you give me an example of who your customers would be, or what type of customers you're looking for when your sales force starts soliciting?
Sure. There are a number of key verticals, that I guess the big fish that we go after. So the major users of software testing, at least the testing that we specialize in, would be organizations like major banks, insurance companies, lottery and gaming corporations are major users of testing. There's a lot in sort of big retail. So anytime you buy something online, you put your credit card on there, that all needs to be tested and tested well. We're finding that there's an increasing market in government as well, with a lot of renewal of different systems. And as well, and oil and gas is kind of warming up a bit in Alberta, and that's helping us out as well. If I was to break it down, we deal, about a third of our business is with software development companies, so people developing new software and they need to test it before they go to market with it. Another third of our business is actually end users of software that you purchase off the shelf. So, example, if somebody's got an SAP, system in their corporation, and that needs to be customized in order to meet their business, we will test the customization of that. And then a third part of our business is something called content QA, which is basically verification. We have a major company out of the client of the States that specializes in training videos, and we do the quality assurance for those training videos for all the ones that they've produced for the last 15 years or so.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you. And would you consider an open house once you do have your official office in place?
We would consider a tour for sure. Remembering that we work with other people's data, so we have a secure environment, but absolutely we could bring some people through and make sure that the screens are down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Kompotic.
Thank you, Mayor Provenzano. And thank you, Mr. Garrigan, for the presentation. Thank you. It was excellent. I guess my question is that, so you mentioned earlier about Batchewana and Garden River, and I was just wondering, have they been consulted and have they been involved with the process to date and as a partner or?
Yes, we've our goal really is, I guess a couple of things. We've contracted them shortly after I came through Sault Ste. Marie on the first occasion, met with officials, a couple of councillors. We have been back 3 times actually, and each time have met with different representatives from either of the 2 communities. We have not met with the full council yet, although we've made the offer to. So I expect that as things have become more real, because the first couple of times we were here, it was very much an idea, this is what we'd like to do. Now that we're into, putting boots on the ground, so to speak, it gets more real for everybody. So I expect we'll be going back with a formal, here's who we are as a company to the entire leadership of those communities.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Councillor Butland, I think you were the only one with comments, and then I had one, and then we'll vote.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. This is a good news item, folks. And as I was following, I said, it hit 3 eyes for me. Innovation Center, second to none as far as innovation centers go. IT, the fastest growing industry anywhere in North America, and involvement of Indigenous people. I think this is a real winner for us, whether it creates 16 or 50 or beyond that. It's a good news item. As far as the EDF fund, this is what it's all about. We set aside the monies, and you go to the EDF fund first, because the federal and provincial government will say, where's the city on this? And if the city is not there, chances are they'll say, well, if the city has no faith, we won't have any faith either, or we won't put any money. So that's what it's for. This is a good use for it. And you bring credibility to the situation simply because you have offices in Fredericton and Halifax, Calgary, Vancouver, and Miramichi. So Godspeed and good luck. This is a good initiative for our community, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Councillor Butland has indicated. This is what we have the EDF for. I want to recognize and thank Jennifer Rushton from the UP team who's here tonight. I know that she's worked hard on this for quite a while. I want to recognize Tom Vare, who I know has also worked hard on this, and I know there's been support from the EDC, so I want to recognize their assistance too. Denis, it's been great to work with you. I want to read something that the founder of your company said. Keith is the founder of the company,
that's
correct?
Yes.
Keith McIntosh. And he was speaking to the Canadian Gaming Business Journal. And this is important. I think this is a takeaway from today, because I think it goes to what we've been trying to do, and I think it shows some success. McIntosh speaks highly of the opportunity for companies in the lottery and gaming sector in Sault Ste. Marie. We found that everyone in Sault Ste. Marie, from the UP team to the mayor to the local cluster partners, are incredibly supportive. And here's the important part. Come with a good idea, and people in Sault Ste. Marie will support it. Come with a good idea, and people in Sault Ste. Marie will support it. I couldn't agree with that sentiment more. When I speak to Keith, I'll thank him for expressing it, and I'd like to point people to it, because there's a lot of truth in it. And I'd like to thank you, because I know you've done a lot of legwork on this, and I know that you've been doing the heavy lifting and traveling back and forth, and the support that you've had to date will continue. And we look forward to your company being very successful in our community. So on that note, we'll call a vote. All in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Under agenda item 5.8, Julia
Just sitting.
Piskevich, member of the St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Committee, is in attendance regarding agenda item 7.3.2, MS Norgoma update.
Welcome to Council, Ms. Piskevich. So
Thank
we'll
you
hear
very
from Julia,
much.
and then we'll call up the report, and staff, council can ask questions of staff on the report, and then we'll vote on the report. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Provenzano and members of council. Thank you for providing the St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center with the opportunity to speak to the matters at hand this evening. I was asked by the St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center Board of Directors to speak this evening as one of the newest board members to have come onto the board in 2017. Together with the existing Board of Directors, we have been able to achieve incredible work during the 2018 operating season. The St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center has seen rejuvenation to its membership since September 2017, with 7 young professionals joining the Museum Ship Norgoma board from the community of Sault Ste. Marie. These young professionals have provided invaluable support in new projects and expertise in the sectors of arts and culture, social services, and law. These young professionals have filled positions both at the board and operation levels for the Museum Ship Norgoma. These positions include treasurer, secretary, communication officer, grant and proposal coordinator, employment coordinator, ship manager, and curator. The St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center Board of Directors has worked incredibly hard for decades to operate and maintain the Museum Ship Norgoma. And with the addition of the new members, this past year, the museum ship has seen a record-breaking operating season. This demonstrates the drive and dedication of young professionals and how vital community support is to a local nonprofit and charitable organization, such as the Museum Ship Norgoma. Without this support, the St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center would not have seen the great success we have this past year. In my professional opinion, as the curator of Sault Ste. Marie history, heritage, and culture, the Museum Ship Norgoma, as an artifact itself, provides the perfect atmosphere and venue to tell the history of the waterways that are so essential to Sault Ste. Marie. The Museum Ship Norgoma has been brought to life through venue rentals, events, and newly curated exhibitions. We have enticed our community to come aboard and rediscover this museum ship. The successful 2018 operating season aboard the Museum Ship Norgoma is a true testament to the hard work and dedication of young professionals that have chosen to dedicate their time and efforts towards rejuvenating the museum ship. These young professionals, together with the knowledgeable guidance of the existing board, have proven to be skilled and extremely professional individuals, intuitive and pragmatic board members, and strong leaders for our summer staff and volunteers. With our gained momentum and recent successes, it is pertinent for our board of directors to resolve the issue of our location in order not to diminish the efforts of our young professionals and hardworking board members. A committee of the St. Mary's River Marine Heritage Center Board of Directors has been focusing their efforts to resolving this issue with discussions with city staff and third-party organizations. It is our hope to remain in the downtown of Sault Ste. Marie, especially within the cultural corridor, in order to continue to serve our community and expand our potential as a cultural attraction. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Julia. Okay, we have staff's report before us. Do anybody have, well, Councilor Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'll ask the obvious question, Mr. Ver, if a suitable relocation can't be found, do we have a next step that we would be looking at?
We need Mr. Vera's microphone.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero. Excuse me, it's our hope that we will be able to come up with a suitable solution. And that's in part why we put the dates in by February 1st, in order to have something, and then if at that time we don't have something in place, we'll be able to come back to council with some alternates, again, with the goal to, should the docks be approved, not impact the installation of the docks and the marina season.
Should I read into that you have some possible locations that you're thinking of? Because
we do have, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Nero, we do have some potential locations that we're thinking of, and we've been in discussions with some other parties about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have Councilor Bruni.
I guess to piggyback on Councilor Nero's question to Mr. Ver, a board member approached the Conservation Authority which was in an open session, so it's not that it was in a closed caucus, but presently they don't have a location for the boat. So my question is that you're saying that we have possible locations for the boat, but right now the Norgoma board, when they did the presentation, they do not have any locations. That's my question to you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, that's correct. They haven't confirmed a location. They are in discussions with some alternate sites for the location of Norgoma. As well, staff have reached out to different organizations looking for a potential site as well in conjunction with them, and our hope is by February 1st we will be able to pin down a site.
All right, then. Thanks.
Okay, so I have Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Ver. First of all, thank you for the presentation to the Maritime Board. Mr. Ver, just to look into a couple of questions a little deeper, you're talking about you're going to be working with the Norgoma Board to find a location. Can we assume that if it is moved that the intention is to continue to run it as a museum? My first question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, certainly the Board of Norgoma, that is the goal, to find a location that they can continue to operate the ship as a museum.
Okay. Another question, the places that you're considering, it seems like you have some ideas. Is it within 15-minute drive of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, in the area of Sault Ste. Marie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I know the Board of the Norgoma has looked at options. I think some of those may be outside of the 15-minute drive time that you just mentioned. Those are sites that they're searching and having discussions with the owners of the property to locate on.
Okay. And for clarification, if the ship is moved, do we see it that the city will help with the moving costs, such as towing it, setting it up at its new location and so forth? What would our responsibilities be?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, at this time, we certainly haven't made any commitments as staff, and it would really depend on the location and the cost, and that would be something that would have to come back to council, should there need to be, or a request is made of the city to assist in any way.
Okay. And my final question, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but maybe it goes back to our presenter. How many students were employed this past summer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, my understanding is there was 11 students. Yeah, and I see nods from the Norgoma Board, so 11 students.
Employed. Okay. I have comments for later.
Councillor Graninetti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ver. This group is asking for a year for them to keep the boat here for a year. You're giving them about 6 months' time. Would it be possible that we change the date till roughly September, October of next year, rather than them coming back in the spring, and then this going through council and staff wasting their time again?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti. One of the reasons for the extension date that we provided is that staff will have a request coming before council at budget time in terms of purchasing new docks for the Bondar Marina. Should that request be approved, then the configuration of the docks really does need to be informed by the Norgoma being in or out. And so because the berthing rights were terminated, if the Norgoma is out of the marina at the beginning of the season, we would install docks and have a different configuration. If we were to leave the Norgoma there and put in the new docks, then they would have to be built around the Norgoma and that configuration would change. So that's why we're hoping to have the issue resolved by spring thaw so that, again, if it's approved by council for the new docks, that new configuration can go in.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver. Has for the new location, has the idea of possibly dry docking it at the Suncor site next to Purvis Marine, has that been brought up to you as of yet? If the city was successful in possibly purchasing that site?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti, it was something that just came up at our last meeting with the Norgoma. It was more, I think, a suggestion from a community member that could happen. It's not something that we've looked into in any detail as to the feasibility or the cost of doing that.
Okay, no, it's almost like the Norgoma would fit that area with the bush plane being there, and the heritage place, not the heritage place, sorry, the Ermitage being there. So, okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver, the Norgoma's tourist season is done now, as I understand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, they do have some events planned for this fall, community events that are planned. So it is ongoing.
Okay, that's helpful. It says in your report that the estimated cost to move the vessel is approximately $20,000, and that the board doesn't have sufficient funds at this time to cover that cost. Is there any indication that with the additional events there might be that type of funding available for them to pay to move it if they do find a new location?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, at this time, I believe in our conversation with the Norgoma board that, there's the actual moving cost is the $20,000. Then there's also, for example, the example we're using was the Surrey Hospital site. There'd be some additional infrastructure costs for bollards to be installed, et cetera, services. And it's that total package that they wouldn't have the funds to support. And so I don't think through these events in the fall that would cover the entire cost of that location.
Okay. So I guess the question would be in the spring, whether or not there's a request of the city to cough up some money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, that's correct. Once we've got a location determined, then we can look at the actual hard costs and what the budget for that would be.
Okay. And if there can't, if a new location can't be found, or if there's a lack of ability to fund a movement to a new location, would it be sufficient grounds under the agreement? I don't know if you can answer this, to terminate the agreement, take back the Norgoma into our possession, so we can decide what to do with it?
I think you probably have to direct that question to legal. The city solicitor, I'm not sure if you're in a position to answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, I would have to look at the agreement again and review the steps that have been taken so far by CSD and then be able to provide a comment.
Yeah, okay. I guess perhaps for February 1st, if there's another report coming back, that'd be helpful, because I think we need some certainty around this once and for all come the spring.
Okay. Is that it, Councillor Shoemaker?
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. So we have Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ver. Mr. Ver, would it be fair to say that this whole initiative around the time frame referred to in your report would be related to the desire to redesign and refurbish, upgrade, repair, replace the Roberta Bondar Marina docks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, I think twofold. One, obviously, we have a council resolution to terminate the birthing rights.
Correct.
And the second being, yes, we do have a request. We'll be coming forward to council on the replacement of the Bondar docks, which was mentioned in our previous council report, that the docks are quite aged and in need of replacement. And a decision on whether the Norgoma is there or not obviously factors heavily into how that new marina is configured.
Correct. So have we received any preliminary information as to the costs that you're looking at for the marina rejig? Would it be fair to say it's under 10,000, over 200,000? Is there a ballpark figure that council can be aware of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, we do have a ballpark figure. We're bringing it forward within our council. It will be brought forward at budget time, but I'll look to Virginia and Brent Lamming. Perhaps they would have the...
Thank you.
I think for clarity too, as you answer that question, whether the Norgoma is moved or not, it's likely there will be a request coming forward.
Correct.
For new docks. It's just a matter of the configuration.
Correct.
The docks as they currently are seriously in need of replacement.
Just trying to get a sense, Mr. Mayor, of what the cost is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers. In the previous report, there were the two budget figures for the differences in the configuration. I'm just trying to see if I can pull up the report right now, but I think there is a difference of about 60,000, 70,000 between the two, but I'll verify.
So the point being that should the Norgoma be relocated and the area where the Norgoma sits, it's my understanding from boaters who use the marina that we're talking maybe a difference of about 3 slips that would be gained, because the new piers and docks that have to go in are intended to be much larger size to reflect the current requirements and demands of those who do use the marina. So to be clear, for the Norgoma to be removed and then to do this project, which I totally support, that the marina does need to be refreshed. It's old, it needs attention hugely. But it would cost probably $60,000 to $70,000 more to do the additional, as opposed to working to upgrade and replace and refurbish the current size of the marina. Is that correct?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers. Sorry, just a clarification. So the difference would be $150,000 between option A and option B. My apologies. And yeah, there is the additional slips that would be there, as well as the landing platform. So regardless of the configuration, the one configuration will obviously be slightly more expensive than the original replacement as is.
Thank you. So to expand the marina by the 3 or so slips that would be gained, has there been a demand or I mean, this is referred to in the report about the need of the timeline related to this project, Mr. Mayor, that's why I'm pursuing this. Has there been any sort of needs analysis carried out and cost recovery projection around this project to help council when it does come forward? Because to come forward as a budget request, which I realize I won't be here to vote on, which I do support that it does need to be attended to, there needs to be some understanding of that's in fact what's driving this entire timeline for the Norgoma. So has there been any needs analysis done? How do we know that we need to spend $150,000 more than what it would be to just upgrade what's there now and replace it and make it safe and so on and so forth, which again, I do support. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to whoever the appropriate staff is.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, I think I think there's 2 issues there. One is really the resolution was to terminate the birthing rights August 31st.
Correct.
And then the second is timing-wise, if we are going to replace the docks, then when we come forward at budget time, we can provide the analysis on the numbers and the details related to the replacement of the docks. But it's really efficiently, if you're going to install new docks, you wouldn't want to delay a decision on Norgoma, because if you decided later in the fall to remove it, you've just installed all new docks. Now you're going to be looking at a cost to reconfigure and purchase new docks in order to accommodate that new space. So it's really looking at how we do this in an efficient manner and making sure that we do it as efficiently as possible in the most cost-effective way.
Yes, but I didn't get an answer to the question around whether there's a needs analysis that's been done to even know that we need to expand it, because if we're just working with what's there, it wouldn't matter whether Norgoma was there or not. Removing the Norgoma shouldn't be driven by the fact that we need to upgrade our marina. Bottom line is what is really not being said, and the elephant in the room, if you like, or the ship in the marina, is that because we're looking at removing the docks, it's a great chance to get rid of the Norgoma. And that's not exactly the way this should be being looked at. So that's why I'm pressing on that, but I'm going to let it go there, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sure you'll be glad to know I'm going to let it go there. My other question through you would be to our solicitor, and I think I just heard you saying in responding to Councillor Shoemaker that Ms. Borwick, you don't have the agreement with you tonight. You're not familiar with the agreement, the 1981 agreement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, I have seen the agreement when we've had prior meetings on this matter. However, I don't have it with me tonight to be able to
answer questions. Yeah, and that's a little bit disappointing in that we're asking council to make a decision on a staff report to accept a recommendation, and critical to it, an underpinning of it, is where we stand legally on this matter. And yet we can't even ask any questions tonight about where we stand legally on this matter with the agreement. Because, and I'll say this because it's public knowledge, the sister ship, the Norisle, is going through a legal procedure right now on the Manitoulin Island on this identical situation. The town of Little Current, I believe it is, tried to get rid of their ship. They sued the town. I can tell you that this board of directors have been very gracious by not going that route. And I'm the one that's asking legally, where do we stand? Because quite frankly, I've read the agreement, I know it very well. It won't come as any surprise to anyone here. I'm not a lawyer, as there are a few, but I know that legally, we don't have the authority to evict it. And yet we passed a resolution about it. So I would love to have had the opportunity to get a legal opinion tonight from our own staff, but I guess I can't do that. So I'll leave it, Mr. Mayor.
So,
because my question would be legally.
There are two different issues here. The one issue that Councillor Shoemaker raised was a legal issue surrounding taking possession of the ship. The legal issue that you're raising is a legal issue relating to our right to determine what's in the marina. I wouldn't share your opinion that the agreement requires that we keep that ship in the marina in perpetuity, and that we as a city don't have a right to say the ship is no longer in the marina. I think there's an open question, and that's a question that city legal will have to answer at some point, as to what the city's rights are under the agreement to take possession of the ship. But that's a separate set of rights than the rights that relate to our marina and what's in the marina.
Well, I'm not going to enter into an argument with you, and you're the lawyer, I'm not. I've read that agreement. There's nothing in that agreement that dictates the city can evict it. Nothing.
I would rely on that to say that the city could, but that's beside the point.
We'll leave that.
So, any other?
Okay, no other questions at this time. I'll have comments, Mr. Mayor.
Any other? So we're on comments.
We're on comments now.
We're on comments.
It may have an answer for us. I'm not sure.
Well, but the gentleman up there isn't city
no,
legal.
So it was directed to city staff.
Yes, it was directed to city staff. So we're on comments. We're going to start with Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate that as council, I believe we all can say thank you for the hard work that the Norgoma board from the past and the new Norgoma board has given to this ship. Many of us over the last number of months have had a chance to visit the Norgoma, and some of us have not. If you have visited the Norgoma, you will notice that a tremendous number of improvements have been made by the new young board. The new young board comprises of those between the ages of 25 up to 40, which basically is a group of passionate individuals that have seen some new energy and want to preserve our history. I personally want our young people to make a positive contribution to our community, and I believe that this whole council does as well. Since I've been on council for only 2.5 years, I have heard more than once that we want our young people to feel that they're part of solutions, part of issues. A number of young people have joined this board because they feel that there is a future for the ship. According to A Brighter Futures Together, it's a common website, young people are among the most committed to the well-being of their community. That's a fact. After all, it's where they also live. Also, it's all important to know it's essential for young people to play a full part in their local community, giving them a greater say about the issues which affect them as individuals and collectively. If it's important to them, let them run with it. So many times we have said, don't the youth care about the community? I disagree. I think they do. And this is coming out very clear with this new board. Basically, it is my role as counselor, as everyone around this table, to stand up for the young, to support what they have a passion for. Basically, I'm asking that we, as a council, are looking at giving them an extension till January. But as Councillor Graninetti said, can we consider a full year? It boils down to that, yes, the ship has been here for many years. Yes, other boards have done a good job in trying to raise the awareness of the ship. And this young board has, in a short period of time, done new displays. But we cannot ignore the facts that over the last number of years, visitations have increased. We cannot ignore the facts that events have increased. And we cannot ignore the fact that it is our history. Seeing the freighters pass through the St. Mary's River, going through the locks, just reiterates that this is an opportunity for us to preserve our history. How many other communities in the Great Lakes can throw a stone, throw a rock, and hit a massive freighter? This is a good opportunity to tell the story, to tell the history of freight transportation through our waterways. Perhaps this ship could be a new doorway into educating not just people that live in this community, but Canada, how significant the Great Lakes are. Thank you.
Councillor Myers.
I expect tonight is the last time I'll participate in a substantial decision made as a member of City Council. The decision before us to accept or reject the staff report and recommendation concerning the Norgoma is indeed substantial. Mr. Mayor, one thought has been troubling me for months on this matter of moving the Norgoma, and that thought comes down to the word wisdom. Wisdom and its application in making decisions should be a contemplative, careful process, and I believe that has occurred to a great extent. However, wisdom also considers the soundness of a decision with regard to applying experience, knowledge, and good judgment. This is the stumbling block that has been nagging me, and I find it troubling. Is this council 100% confident that removing the Norgoma from its present site is using wisdom? Respectfully, I ask that question. Is it an act of good judgment, especially now that we've gained new knowledge about the reinvigorated management and operation? Are we genuinely seeking to be wise, or are we stuck in a predetermined decision that was made when circumstances were quite different? Are we creating a destiny for tomorrow's history that time will prove was actually unwise? As today's decision makers, I urge each of us to apply careful wisdom in this decision. I implore you members not to act based on a personal opinion or out of a bias, your own or that of others. This is too important a matter to be defined as a beauty in the eye of the beholder. That being where one person may think the vessel is an ugly eyesore, while another sees worth in the heritage and a viable opportunity. Dear Council, opinion is not wisdom. I propose there is wisdom in permitting the Norgoma to remain where it is. It has been there for decades at the pier that was custom built for it by a previous council. Leaders, just as we are today, who in their wisdom had a vision to put something active and of interest on our waterfront, and in fact named the area Norgoma Marine Park. Our duty at this table is to set aside personal opinion and to make every effort to apply wisdom based on knowledge, experience, and good judgment. I can say with confidence, I have checked my own heart on this matter. I have considered carefully the wisdom of keeping this tourist attraction in a prime location on our waterfront. I have been a tourism specialist marketing our community since 1989. I know, based on my knowledge and my experience, that supporting it versus eliminating it is a wise move. Seeking to move the ship in order to gain 3 or 4 new slips is not a cost recovery or new income undertaking. The revenue is simply not there in the boating sector. That too is a fact I know well based on my knowledge and experience. I appreciate repairs and upgrades are needed to maintain the facility, but to be clear, it is not to create new revenue. Leaving Norgoma where it is does not prohibit replacement and repair. Leaving the Norgoma to operate where it is readily seen by visitors walking on our waterfront or from cruise ships is clearly an asset, a wise decision. It simply makes sense. Here is the crux of this entire issue today. Is the recommendation of staff based on the application of true wisdom, or is it the fulfillment of the will of council? Council, I encourage you to turn down the staff report, apply wisdom, and leave the Norgoma alone. Let these folks continue to employ 11 summer students, host 6,000 visits on board, and create events for our community to enjoy. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. Knowledge understands the light has turned red, and wisdom knows enough to apply the brakes. Knowledge sees the quicksand. Wisdom walks around it. Knowledge memorizes the 10 Commandments, and wisdom obeys them. Please, please, Council, I implore you, let's use some wisdom. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Shoemaker, Councilor Shoemaker, you're the last one on my list here. Do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I respect Councillor Myers' passion on this issue, she knows, as well as most others know, that we differ strongly on this issue. And I fail to see how giving the Norgoma yet another year, after 47 years or 46 years, would achieve much different than what has been achieved to this point. We heard tonight that visits are up. However, I fail... The one point I struggle with as I read this report is 11 summer students were employed at the vessel. The ship was repainted for an unknown amount, and yet they still are unable to come up with sufficient amount of funds to do a simple task that we gave them at least 6 months' notice on, which was to remove the ship from the marina. And if they're not able to do that, I'm not sure how they will be able to achieve any type of ongoing viability for years to come. So I appreciate the effort that's been put in. I appreciate the passion that folks have for this venture, but I still don't see it. I don't see the success of the ship based on what I'm reading. I think giving the ship till February to determine if a new location can be found is wise. However, ultimately, I think, and it's terribly unfortunate, the ship will be back here asking for money to remove itself from the marina. And that's why my questions tonight centered around, well, when does the ship become ours again? Because I know there is this belief that we can't do anything with the ship because we don't own it. Well, at some point, if the ship can't do anything with itself, it reverts back to us. So I would, that's my position. It hasn't changed. I support staff's recommendation because I think it's reasonable to extend the period until before the ice melts and figure out what to do with it in the spring, because I see that continuing its existence at the Bondi Marina will not be meaningful change.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if I can have you read the resolution, please. Yep.
I have a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Turco, resolved that the report of the Deputy CAO of Community Development and Enterprise Services dated September 24, 2018 concerning the MS Norgoma be received and that notice be served to the St. Mary's River Marine Centre that an extension has been provided to have a new location for the MS Norgoma finalized by February 1, 2019. And further, notwithstanding the berthing rights that were terminated as of August 31st, 2018, that the MS Norgoma be permitted to remain at its current location until April 15, 2019, or as soon as weather or ice conditions permit, when it shall be removed to a new location. And further, that staff work with the St. Mary's River Marine Centre Board to assist in finding a new location for the vessel, whether that be a permanent or temporary location, so as not to interfere with marina operations in spring 2019.
Recorded vote was requested, Madam Clerk. Yes? Councillor Fata first.
Just for clarification, my understanding of this is that we're still looking at it from the point of view of seeing it moved elsewhere. That is our preferred.
That's explicit in the resolution. You're directing staff to continue to work with.
Because nowhere in this does it touch on the cost to have it dismantled, disposed of. That's a huge question.
That's a whole separate.
I know, but that's gonna come to us if they can't find a location within a specified time. If we're giving them this much time.
We're not dealing with that tonight, Councillor Fata.
I know, but we have to look at the bigger picture, Mr. Mayor.
So Mr. Councillor Fata, the vote's called here. Okay? So these larger issues you're raising will have to be something that's dealt with in the spring. Yeah, Councillor Turco?
I'd like to remove my name as seconder.
Okay.
Since I'll be voting.
Okay, so we, who has the motion?
I have Councillor Shoemaker as the mover.
So we need a seconder. Councillor Butland?
Okay, Councillor Turco?
Against.
Councillor Fata?
Against.
Councillor Christian?
For.
Councillor Kropotich?
Against.
Councillor Huppinen?
For.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Against.
Councillor Grandinetti?
Against.
Councillor Shoemaker?
For.
Councillor Nero?
For.
Councillor Bruni?
For.
Councillor Myers?
Against.
Councillor Butland?
For.
Mayor Provenzano?
For.
7, 6. Motion carries.
Which side?
The motion carries.
The motion carries. Okay, we're on the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, Councillor Myers.
6.11, Mr. Mayor. RFP Development of Visual Identity and Branding.
Very good. Those questions I expect will be directed to Mr. Ver. Go ahead, Councillor Myers.
Mr. Ver, you're aware of this. I was in touch with you earlier today. To be clear, this visual identity and branding will not delineate what the Corporate Affairs Office under the Deputy CEO White and Deputy Clerk Tazinski have rolled out. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers. The RFP that went out was to assess the current branding and improve and develop recommendations. So we'll be working with the clerk's office as well as corporate communications and our partners at the EDC and the Innovation Center to look at the complete package of branding for the city of Sault Ste. Marie and allow the consultants to make those recommendations.
So if I'm understanding correctly, then it could well be that the visual identity and branding for the corporation that was just rolled out under 2 years ago could all be changed? I thought this was a branding and visual identity for the Sault Ste. Marie future plan that was more community-oriented versus the corporation itself.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, the consultants will look at all the visual identities and be working on options and recommendations for the city. So it could include the current packages and brand elements for the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
Well, now I'm getting confused because we got a report at this table around the visual identity and branding for the corporation. We developed a municipal flag with such on it, and now I'm hearing a question mark that might be that could change. I really need clarification here because I find this very disturbing if that's my understanding. So could it change, Mr. Bear? That's a question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, it could change based on the recommendations and the review of the brand agency. What we've asked them to do is look at all those brand elements, assess those ones, and make recommendations to improve. So that's what they'll be coming back with.
Well, it's a good job I'm not staying on this council because I'd be bringing back a resolution at the next meeting, which I'm probably not entitled to do because I'll be a lame duck by then. But this is very disturbing, Mr. Mayor. This is not at all what we approved and understood we were doing when we acted about a year ago. Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth, you're on this point.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Ver. Just looking at the list of different companies that submitted RFP, how many companies were local?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, there was one company that was local on the list of applicants, or respondents.
Okay, so one company? Okay. And the company that you're suggesting, I'm under the impression they have currently are doing work for us on other projects?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I'm actually not aware that they're doing any work right now with the city of Sault Ste. Marie, no.
Okay, so this is our first time potentially to be working with this group?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, that's correct.
Okay. And my other question with regards to the branding, just refresh, when did the RFP go out and how was it advertised locally?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, the RFP closed on August 14th. I believe there was 3 weeks, so it went out in mid to late July. We put it up on the typical, through the typical procurement process for the city of Sault Ste. Marie on the website, and I know that gets picked up by different, bid hosting sites.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Just one last piece. Very disappointed that the local company wasn't selected. I don't know all the background, obviously, but having a local company, having this money injected back into the economy, I think is more of a positive. Thank you.
Anybody else on this matter? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have comments actually on this matter.
We'll get back to you then. Councillor Fada, did you have a question?
Yeah, question. My concern is that that this is going to be money that will be wasted. If I haven't heard it once, I've heard it 150 times that we're doing too many studies in Sault Ste. Marie. Can you just spend maybe a minute or two, Mr. Bear, and explain to the taxpayers out there how this $58,000 plus dollars will be wisely spent?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fada, I think to start with, we would probably go back to the Community Adjustment Committee and the recommendations that they were made in the community consultations. One of the most frequent comments that we heard back from people is that the community needs to do a better job promoting itself. We've got a lot of great assets here. We've got a great quality of life. We've got a lot of jobs that are available in the community. And we have to do a better job of telling the world about what it means to live in Sault Ste. Marie. So in putting together the future SSM project, that was one of the key initiatives that we knew we wanted to undertake as recommended by community members. And the money that will be utilized with the future SSM money, which has contributions from the city, of course, but also leverage funding through NOHFC and FedNor, will go towards actually doing that professional design for the community so that when we do go out and tell our story, we have an image and an appeal that is professional and attracts the attention that we want.
This isn't a study, Councillor Fada. This isn't a study.
But we're talking about spending money.
Yeah, but it's not on a study. You referred to it as a study. We're not talking about spending money on a study.
What are we going to pay Mr. Scott Thornley? What are we going to pay him? What are we going to be paying him for his services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fada. So the work project will actually involve the design, the actual design of new graphic logos, campaigns, imagery that would be used in promoting the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
I'd like to have this pulled, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Okay, we'll get back to it then, Council. We'll deal with it off consent, so we'll just stay on the matters on consent. Any other matters on consent? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 6.13 bike sharing program.
Go ahead.
This is a RFP for, or is it, it's to bring back a plan for bike sharing, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Through you to, I think it's Mr. Vare? No, Mr. Lamming.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, that is correct.
Okay, and with that plan will be some cost-benefit analysis or some analysis on viability of this as a self-sustaining industry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, that's correct. As we stated in the report, we're looking to do this on a break-even basis. If there's anything subject to that being arrived from the request for proposal process, we'd come back to council with that information.
Okay. Yeah, I have read about these types of programs, even in large metropolises, which end up, being assumed by the municipality. So I guess some information on in some future report that comes back, whenever this comes back, on how this is played out in like-sized municipalities would be helpful information to have.
Okay. Anybody else in bike sharing? We have Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Vare. Mr. Vare, the reason I'm directing this question to you is because you and I started looking at this together about a year and a half ago. And I just want to ask you 3 questions. One, in the first part of looking into this project, did you reach out to Algoma University and Sault College? As you know, I had meetings with Algoma University and Sault College, and I asked that you follow up with them. The reason is because Algoma University actually had a focus group with their students, and they were asking for a bike share program as a way for them to enjoy the rest of the community, to get downtown. And Sault College being so close to the hub trail. So have you reached out to these 2 institutes about this program for their feedback and support?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, we have, I wouldn't say we've had detailed conversations with them about the mechanics and how it would work, but certainly we've heard that there is interest that's been expressed by the 2 campuses for this type of service for post-secondary students.
Okay. In the conversations with them I had in the past, we talked about potentially they would support it financially, to Ms. Councillor Shoemaker's point. Will you see yourself having a conversation about them being a partnership financially?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I think based on the responses in the RFP and the costs involved there, that's something we would look at going forward, depending on what the fees would be from a bike share operation.
Okay. Thank you. My other 2 questions to Mr. Lamming. The University of Windsor has a partnership with the City of Windsor. Have you reached out to the City of Windsor to understand how this partnership is working between the school and the city and to sustaining this?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, we have done some research on that, and the partner is Zagster, as we discussed earlier. And so we would reach out to that as one potential proponent, and we have the RFP process. We could go to all different providers of the bike share program, and through that, they'd be invited to submit a submission as well.
Okay. The reason I mentioned the City of Windsor and university is because I think there's a lot of good learning there. So reaching out to the City of Windsor and the university, I think we can borrow some of their ideas and understand why their program is being successful and sustainable. My other question is with regards to the companies that you'd be reaching out to for the RFP. Have you talked to them about them reaching out to corporates for sponsorship and advertising as another revenue?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, we had numerous discussions with different providers and also individuals from different municipalities, and one such place was Kingston that I did have discussions with the director there of environment, and they had explored a trial with a company that they eventually went through an RFP process with, and the company was dropped like that they moved forward with that process. Some of the other alternatives I've mentioned in the report, Moby Bikes, Velgo in Ottawa, U-Bicycle in BC. They also have gone through similar processes and trials, and they've been successful, and some do have partnerships for sponsor available as well. So that's another avenue to Councillor Shoemaker's point that there are opportunities to have sponsorship for this program.
And one last question is, I understand this is a bike sharing program. In Detroit, they have a bike sharing program that's very effective and, again, is sustainable and revenue producing. Detroit has a joint program where it's bike sharing, and you can actually rent a scooter from these locations as well. And people will use a scooter to go around town or a bicycle. Have you heard of this in these companies you're investigating, if they offer the scooter as another option?
Through Ms. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, we've explored strictly on the bike share component. We'd be open to looking at anything for the betterment of the community. And at this point, we're looking at the docking stations that are potentially a good avenue, and there are also dockless stations as well. So that's kind of where the focus was when this project, as you stated, happened over a year ago, took place, focused on the bike share portion.
Okay. And as you look at the RFPs, are you going to be reaching out to, I think it's STAC, or our Bicycling Association group? Will you be reaching out to them for their input as you move forward?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, we're open to discussing it with any local group that would have input into the process. We do have in the report some things that we'd like to see with respect to costing for the public and things like that we'd like to see from the submission moving forward, but we always welcome input from local interest groups that focus on the active living lifestyle.
Okay. If I can make one final comment, if I can recommend someone from the Downtown Association Committee from the roundtable be part of the whole project, since it could be a good link back into revitalization of the downtown and the schools. Thank you.
Anybody else on this item? On this item, Mr. Fata? Oh, sorry. Councillor Butland on this item?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we have a resident expert in the city on cycling of all types, Mr. Riopel. Have we reached out to him? I suspect he could be a consultant, rather probably offer all the services gratis. Have we reached out to him?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, to Councillor Butland. At this point right here, we're trying to get the information from all the parties that provide the bike share expertise. We haven't spoken to Mr. Riopel directly with respect to bike share. He has expertise in providing bike services, but we haven't spoken to him specifically on the bike share program.
Are you only dealing with this exercise in bike sharing? That's the title, and that's what you're pursuing, correct?
At this point, that's what we're focusing on, yes.
It's been several years now, but staff, probably a decade ago, just a handful, said, I'd like to bike to work. And what a symbolic move of that would be. This is all about cycling in the whole community. Bike sharing is maybe one aspect, but it's very specific. If we could promote bicycle use of bikes, people who have bikes, to use them. And they said, I'd like to ride my bike to work. But if I have a 15-minute or 20-minute drive on my bicycle and I get to work and I'm all sweated up, is there a shower or something for me? And it died a quick death. I'm wondering if staff would be interested in if we offered the facilities to them. Just a thought. It's not even probably appropriate to this discussion, but I put it out.
It's your last chance. Go for it.
Last
yeah.
chance. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else on this? Councillor Fata, were you just bringing Councillor Butland to my attention, or did you want to make a comment on this matter?
I'm just trying to get a handle on the marketing part of this whole exercise, whether
on the bike sharing?
Yeah, I just want to have an idea that there's some sort of marketing.
Like reaching out, you mean, to the
something that indicates that this is viable, because I'm having negative thoughts. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ms. McNamara.
You have negative thoughts. Councillor Fata.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Okay, through
like,
you.
this is something that should
Yeah.
be done privately, like something like Hollywood
Bike
service
sharing?
that's downtown, right on Queen Street. Like they have all those scooters, and a place like that could have something that sort of an offshoot of that could be something like this. A
Okay,
privately
let's
run
give staff
operation.
a chance to respond, Councillor Fata. Mr. Lamming, I think that this is a program that's been in many other communities. Could you comment on what led us to going into this?
Yeah. Through you, Ms. Mayor, to Councillor Fata, this program is nationwide and growing in popularity in the province of Ontario, and we have reached out to different providers, and there is interest for trials to take place with these providers that provide the information back that would come back to council for decision.
Thank you. This is just for information tonight, Council. It's on consent, and I think we just heard from staff that it will come back. So when there's an opportunity to vote on it, did you want?
I just want to make one final comment. Example being, Water Tower Inn, they have bicycles on site. They make them available to their guests.
I think
the Delta could do the same thing. The quality, it's something that could be done privately, and I just don't want to see it something that we take it on as a city.
Councillor Fata, we can pull it out and you can vote against it if you like. It's simply information right now. It will be coming back to us in a more fulsome, it won't be coming back to me, it'll be coming back to some of you in a more fulsome format, and you can vote then, or we can pull it out and you can vote against it now. What would be your pleasure?
Just leave it.
Leave it? Okay. All right. Anybody else on consent? Okay. Councillor Turco, I think you were already down, and then Councillor Christian, I don't see him here, but you go ahead, and then Councillor Hollingsworth. Okay. Councillor Shoemaker. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Turco. You're next.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. The mayor earlier referred to a study. This is a study, section item 6.20. The downtown traffic study. Mr. Elliott, government, we are government. Council had approved a budget of $100,000 last year for the downtown traffic study, and now you're back to us asking for an extra $20,000. What have we done anything through you, Madam Acting Mayor, on this study already? Is this to help it begin, or where is it going, this extra 20,000?
Through you, to you, Mr. Elliott, please.
Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Turco, the study is nearing completion, and as the case in most environmental assessments, the key in environmental assessments is consultation with the public and with agencies, and the request here this evening is to cover off the expense required for additional consultation which came up for the Downtown Association. So that's what the request is. The study itself is probably 90% complete.
And a follow-up, Madam Acting Mayor, on that, I think you're talking about the open house we had here earlier, where I was there and I saw a few people, and they had some concerns about where this is going. What was your take on it as far as the public, about downtown and the traffic study?
Madam Acting Mayor, just a point of clarification to Councillor Turco, there were two open houses here at Civic Center, and then there was a workshop last week, two forums, one afternoon, one in the evening for the Downtown Association. That was the additional consultation. The preferred alternative that's coming out of the environmental assessment, which is public, it was presented at the second open house, is for Queen Street and Bay Street and the other streets all to remain one way. That's the recommended alternative coming out of the environmental assessment. And the addition to that is the is the recommendation that Bay Street, instead of going down to 3 lanes one way, it's going to go down to, the recommendation is to go down to 2 lanes one way. And that's what's coming out of the environmental assessment at this point.
Sorry, Madam Acting Mayor. After that, I have another
Go ahead.
follow-up question.
Go ahead,
Follow-up
through to
question.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes, to Mr. So are you coming back to council, and when are you coming back to council with the recommendation?
Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Turco, the recommendation will come to council as soon as we can. It's an information report, essentially telling council that this is the preferred alternative that came out of the environmental assessment, and that recommendation is posted as a notice of completion for the environmental assessment. And then there's a 30-day period during which residents or agencies may request a Part 2 order if they disagree with the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Thank you.
Is that it for you for consent? Okay, anyone else on this matter? Okay, who was up next? I think Councillor Hollingsworth, you were up next on consent still? What item?
Yes. 6.17, the skating trails and other winter activities.
Skating trails.
Yes. And through you, Acting Madam Mayor, to, I would say maybe Mr. Mr. Lamming. First of all, I think it's very exciting to look into this. It's something that I think will be well received by families. And so it's quite exciting. But as most people know, the art gallery is going to be doing some changes, possibly some expansion, and possibly looking at the group of 7 statues. Correct me if I'm wrong, are you suggesting that this pilot skating trail be placed down at Clerk Park? Is that correct?
If I could, Councillor Hollingsworth, this was Manager Virginia McLeod's report, so I think we'll direct our questions to Virginia McLeod.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, Councillor Hollingsworth. Yes, that's correct. Attachment B provides an outline for a sample of the skating trail, which is 700 meters in length, which would kind of work its way through the lower section of John Rosewell Park and Clerk Park on the waterfront area.
Okay. And to correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at the attachments here. And at this point, the pilot you're suggesting would be how long? 1 kilometer or less?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. It would be about 700 meters in length, which would take up that front section of the waterfront. There is an opportunity for future expansion if the pilot goes well, to move into the upper portion of the park, which is towards Bay Street. But we wanted to do a shorter pilot to get an understanding of usage.
Okay. And will the pilot be, we be taking consideration renting skates, a rental?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. Not at this time. It is something that we may be able to explore a partnership with other organizations to see if that's an opportunity, but it would require additional staffing to be on site throughout the duration of the time frame. So at this point, no.
Okay. And just my final question. A constituent called me actually today about this, and the constituent was concerned about the cost of keeping it clean. How would you be looking at cleaning this? Would it be just like a sidewalk snowplow? Is there another special piece of equipment that has to be purchased if we pursued this?
I think our Deputy CEO is going to answer this. Mr. Girardi.
Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, certainly we have the equipment already. We do put paths through that area now. They're just walking paths, but we'd use the same equipment. So there's no purchase of any specialized equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all.
Is that it on consent, Councillor Hollingsworth? Nothing more?
Nothing more.
Okay. And I think Councillor Shoemaker was up next, or was Councillor Graninetti next? Councillor Graninetti?
Just on this topic.
On that item? Okay.
On the skating trail. Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Through you to Ms. McLeod. I didn't think we'd be doing it at Clerk Park. My intentions were on having it somewhere like Bellevue Park, where you have more winding trails. or partnering up with one of our local golf courses, possibly teaming up with them and having it go through on their golf carts or something. Because I have a feeling we're going to do it here, and then it's going to be a success, and then we're going to move it somewhere else in the future. It's just the cost of having it here. And then we have to have, what was the other one that's here? Oh, the porta potty, $4,300. Can you give me an explanation on this?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti. With regards to the cost, any location that we would put the skating trails at would require similar to what we have at our other skating facilities, so a change location, so people can get their skates and equipment on in a warm space, as well as having a washroom facilities. So we would have to have that available at other locations. We did look at, when we did the assessment, we took into consideration our access to utilities, because we do have to have lighting for the trail. We need to have power for the building or the portable trailer that we'd be bringing in, access to water so that they could fill the trucks in order to flood the spaces. So those are all factors that we considered as we went through. Access to those services is readily available at the Clergue Park site and provides, a lot of visibility there throughout the winter months. So again, to access to indoor washrooms and the partnerships that could be available through the library, as the library is open through many of those hours, and the art gallery was also part of the consideration when we brought it through the subcommittee and to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Now, was there any intention of possibly putting this at John Rhodes and linking it with the Oval?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, to Councillor Grandinetti. With the Oval being there, we were looking at dispersing the services, so the Oval already has that kind of path in a way, just in a shorter circular area. So again, we didn't want to try to spread out the services throughout the community so that we weren't staggering it through that area. There is fencing that separates the spaces, so you'd have to look at trying to get over to Field B and through the track area there. So the committee kind of landed and assessed the two sites between Bellevue Park and Clergue Park.
Okay, Councillor Grandinetti?
Yep. Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you for that. Anybody else on this item? No. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, still on consent. What item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. 6.15, transit.
6.15, transit.
I will just briefly say 6.17, the skating trail. I'm happy to see that that's going forward. I'll certainly support, if I'm here, the recommendation to fund that in the fall, or for the winter, sorry. On-demand transit, through you to Mr. Lamming. Can you explain to me how this is any different than on-demand
taxis?
Yeah, cab services.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. Currently, we have kind of on-demand right now, but it's not true on-demand in real time, where we order with our transit service that we can order up to 2 weeks in advance for a service that's right in place. Right now, we also have booking in for our cab company of 24 hours in advance as well. So not true on demand. So with this service radar, there's two different alternatives. One is to actually utilize a technology, like the example that was provided in Belleville, to utilize our services to have that route planning for us to redirect current vehicles. And there's also other providers out there, like a company called Via, where they can provide either using your own service vehicles in place to direct traffic as well, or their vehicles, which you purchase. So I think that's where you were aiming with that question right there.
Well, yeah, you've answered what I asked. I guess perhaps what I meant to ask was, why are we doing this and not simply opening the market up to a private company to offer this service on demand pickups, like either a cab company that rejigs its service to offer an on demand through an app, or a cab company that exists like Uber or Lyft?
Through Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, the thought process was behind this. We just finished the route optimization plan. We've implemented the routes, and now we're seeing some of the success that's happening from the routes that are coming in place with respect to ridership, and people becoming familiar, adding back in that half-hour service. So we're continuing to look at ways to strengthen our transit service. So there's a lot of demand potentially in the rural, the periphery areas of the community that we may not be servicing today, because you need so much per hour to support conventional conventional transit service. So this could help support that. We also have our paratransit ambulatory care, which we would like to tender as well and put that as part of the process at the same time. So to have that option, and if we put it out in this fashion, we're going to be able to see what's out there, provide that service to help support what we have.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that I've gotten the answer, which is, why are we doing it, not simply either amending our taxi bylaw or opening up our market for the private sector to do it? Why is it that we're having to offer this program?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, we're always exploring ways that transit can strengthen, as we stated, from the route optimization. And through this process, we wanted to bring it to council to view that we were looking for support to bring this as an item to go forward to strengthen our conventional transit service and our community bus route and our paratransit service. So the thought process was this would provide the avenue to get the information back and bring it forward to council for a decision.
Okay.
Matt's just on 6.
I think I'm kind of getting the same answer, which is that this is something to strengthen our transit system, but I'm not sure. I still don't. I guess I don't see why it's something that we should offer as a transit service when it's probably something that cab service can offer much more easily without any local investment. So. This is just for an expression of interest. Am I correct in that regard?
I believe so, Councillor Shoemaker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker. Yes, it's through an expression of interest, so we gather information. The one main benefit that we can't see today is that if it's potential software, you'll see in real time what's available, and that the users will be able to book online potentially by themselves. That service isn't available today, so hopefully through this expression of interest process, that'd be a benefit that the end user would see.
Right. Although that wouldn't. I suppose that wouldn't be necessary if we were letting the private sector do that. They've already got apps that figure all that out for folks. Right? Like an Uber app or a Lyft app?
I'm sure.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah. I mean, Uber has an app and Lyft has an app. I don't believe we have either Uber or Lyft in Sault Ste. Marie.
Right, and I realized you had stepped out for a moment, but my line of questioning was, why are we offering this service and not simply amending our bylaw to allow this service to be offered privately?
I assume that was where you were going when I sat down.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't really get a satisfactory answer to that, I'll say, but I will support this because it's simply an expression of interest, although I would much rather see an amended bylaw.
Okay. On the same topic, Councillor Fata, go ahead.
Yeah. This brings up, in the report, it brings up the city of Innisville, Ontario, and it seems to suggest that what they're doing there wouldn't work here. Can you just expand on that? Why would what they're doing there not work here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fata. There's actually two there. There's Innisville and there's actually Belleville. The example there we have is Belleville, and they're utilizing a technology to make their routes accessible and planned on real time with respect to directing their service infrastructure right now to the end user.
In our travels, I'm sure everyone's hearing the same thing, but our current bus system is not working for a lot of people. I mean, I've talked to people in the West End, off Prentice Avenue, people that used to be able to get the bus and get to work up at Highway North. Now they can't get there. So there's a problem in our current busing. I think we all know that. Is this? Do you think this proposal here? What does it look like in terms of cost? Does it look like it's something from your point of view? What does it look like in terms of cost? Would it be something that would result in less cost or more cost if we were to follow through on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fata, any types of costs would come back through the expression of interest as part of the expression of interest process. So you'd get those costs once they come back with their proposal.
Just to get back to Councillor Shoemaker's point, when you got the private sector already having infrastructure in place to offer a service that's going to be a lot more efficient and a lot more timely to the residents, I think we should be looking at that as part of the study. Would you not agree?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fata, we actually have one of our providers that do that service right now through our local cab company that is our proponent to provide that service, so they do that right now for the city.
Thank you. Anybody else on this topic? Anything else in the consent agenda? Councillor Butland.
6.7, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Butland.
City of Sault Ste. Marie, it's a credit rating. This is important, folks. It rates Sault Ste. Marie same as the last couple of years, AA minus is stable. It's not the highest, but it is recognized as our community is doing exceedingly well as far as budgeting and finances go. And Standard & Poor's is employed or brought to light, but it's a third-party global group that measures internationally credit ratings for cities right across the world. So to be in the picture, I've lost it, unfortunately for me. Oh, here we are. How do we make out? Institutional framework, very predictable and well-balanced. The economy, average. Financial management, satisfactory. Budgetary flexibility, strong. Budgetary performance, strong. Liquidity, exceptional. Debt burden, very low. Contingent liabilities, low. That's a very positive report card. The credit rating could be higher, certainly, but everything else says our finance department and the mayor and council have been doing a reasonable job over the past while. We're always looking at comparators. How are we doing compared to other people? Now, Standard & Poor's is one, but take a look at the BMA consultants report that does hundreds of communities across Ontario, and they're very comprehensive. Stratford, 541 pages. It measures absolutely everything. Tax debt outstanding per capita, residential permit fees, taxes square foot for a commercial office building, per suite for hotels, in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario average north, and it goes on. It measures countless, innumerable ways if you compare one city to another. The cities from 30,000 to 100,000 were in that group. And it's a tremendous read. It's very slow, but it's hundreds of pages long. And I strongly recommend, like Councillor Myers, I will not be here, to say the financial committee or a subcommittee take a look at this and say, hey, as far as tax basis, we're amongst the lowest. Our liquidity and so on are very good. There are other areas that are not so good. And those are the ones we should be looking at and study them and say, how can we improve in that specific area compared to Peterborough, Belleville, Niagara Falls, and Sarnia, cities our size. Very, very important study comparing our city to all other cities our size in Ontario. Let's take a look at it. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, ask just one question. We pay for this BMA consultant report, Michelle?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butland, yes, we pay for both the Standard & Poor's credit rating as well as the BMA study.
And the BMA study costs how much? I said I wouldn't ask you, but I'm asking you.
About $2,500 a year.
Oh, that's money well spent. Staff uses this to advantage, correct?
Staff does use it. Many departments use it to benchmark different things. I know the community development and economic services area, they use it extensively for a lot of the work they are doing with different presentations also.
So to close, Mr. Mayor, staff is using it. Council, I don't believe, has ever used it to good advantage. Very, very significant step. Please use it next time around. Thank you.
Councillor Christian.
Just brief, Councillor Button hit on all the salient points, but just to the one point that he made, I think that the city as a whole doesn't use the information in the BMA effectively. And I touched on this in the last council meeting, that we're either too shy, or I'm not sure what the issue is, but we don't brag enough about what we do. And if you do look at that BMA study, you'll see some very, very interesting numbers, and contrary to what many people believe in the community. So I'll just say that I think that we as a council and we as a city operation don't do enough to communicate that. The only point I want to make about this Standard & Poor's report is that most people out there, when they think about the city operations, they're thinking about taxation. You've already touched on it. But what's important under the Standard & Poor's report is that it recognizes that we have large capital expenditures. Much of them are mandated by the provincial government, and we're managing them. What's important is going forward in the midterm and the long term, although these capital projects are mandated in most cases, we have the financial stability and the financial resources to get the job done with limited tax burden on the taxpayer. That's the important point. So people will say, well, it's great to have a great credit rating, but what about my taxes? Get it, it's important. But this is telling us that there are much needed capital expenditures that are coming, and we're well positioned to weather it with minimal tax implications going forward. And that's a credit to staff and council for managing the funds and managing the financial condition of the city quite well. Thank you.
Anybody else on the Standard & Poor report? Seeing anything else in the council agenda, in the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, if we can read the resolution with the exception of 6.11.
I have a motion by Councillors Hupenin and Turco. Resolved that all items listed under date September 24, 2018, Agenda Item 6, Consent Agenda, save and accept Agenda Item 6.11 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we're on 6.11. Yeah, maybe perhaps read the resolution, and we've had Councillor Myers and Councillor Fata have spoken to this. We'll go with Councillor Shoemaker next.
Okay, it is actually, there's not a motion that goes with it because there's a bylaw that's adopting that appears under Agenda Item 11. That's Bylaw 2018-202.
Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, I'm not sure, perhaps Ms. Dzinski could answer it. We, if I'm not mistaken, from somewhere like 2013 or 14 to 2017, undertook a review of our visual identity policy, did we not?
Yes.
And that was brought back to council last year?
I believe it was last year.
Okay. And so this, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver, this report, or this contract that is looking to be approved would potentially change our municipal graphics and in essence change our visual identity. Am I mistaken in that, or is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, I think two things on that. One, this project is really the second phase of work that was undertaken. As previously reported to council, we had engaged a company called Trajectory, and they conducted a number of exercises to look at what would be the brand story, the brand ingredients to promoting our community. And we had that work. It was undertaken with a lot of community consultation to pull together those recommendations. And now this is that second phase of work that will take those recommendations, again, with further community consultation and engagement, look at now making recommendations. So they're going to assess what's there currently now in the community, and make suggestions on how you could roll out a new image, logo. They're having an entire brand book there and the implementation for that logo. I don't want to presuppose what they'll come back with, but in our RFP to them, what we asked them to do was assess everything that is out there and make those suggestions to us. So it could be that they come back with tweaks or suggestions on how you could modernize or change now. And I think from the steering committee that was involved, and certainly the members from the different organizations involved in the exercise from the beginning, there's a lot of excitement to look at when you look at the work that was done by this particular firm in their work with Milton and Mississauga and other communities, how they were able to make recommendations for effective campaigns and effective tweaks to their visual identity.
Yeah. Is it possible, or is it something that that these campaigns could be designed with our current visual identity? Because I mean, I guess the challenge would be that if we, replace our logos and our graphics and the items that we've got, first our municipality is going to have to accept them, and then we have to go and sell them beyond the municipal borders. Whereas the graphics we've currently got, I would say, are sort of rooted in the community and sort of already generally accepted by the community, and good to go out there and disperse throughout Ontario and Canada and North America and elsewhere. So is it something that can be modified so that they use our current visual identity and promote us elsewhere with that, or is that sort of step 3 of this project?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, I think that is that will be another step. I think our hope is we allow a firm that has the expertise in this to assess, come back with recommendations. Obviously, that has to be approved and accepted, but we're interested to see what they come back with for the community in order to create that images and that promotional campaign for the community.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Councillor Butland.
Yes, I'm not terribly excited about this one. In fact, I'm probably against it unless it can be explained to me. Visual identity that we presently have, Mr. Ver, what is it that we're trying to seek out? What is it now? What are we trying to achieve?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butland, in the RFP that we put out there, it really was building on the first phase of work that was done by Trajectory, and it's looking at how we promote Sault Ste. Marie. And there was those 2 elements, if you'll recall, of the work that was undertaken. One is how do we promote Sault Ste. Marie outside the community in order to attract businesses and residents to Sault Ste. Marie. The second one the council had talked about was also community pride, and how we engage in campaign to build community pride in the community and do that in an effective way. And I think we've seen a lot of good news in the community over the last couple of years. I think that with the Future SSM project, again, I go back to one of the key recommendations from the stakeholder groups that we talked to was the community of Sault Ste. Marie needs to do a better job of how we're going out there to promote the community outside of Sault Ste. Marie. So working with the folks at Tourism Sault Ste. Marie, the Economic Development Corporation, the Innovation Center, the college, the university, physician recruitment, some of the larger corporations in town. We have a number of people on side with this initiative and working with us to look at how we can work together to effectively promote the community. And I think that's one of the key things. What we really want to do here is have those organizations on side, and they'll be involved in this process to create this new branding so that we can actually amplify the brand that goes out from Sault Ste. Marie, so that those organizations are also helping when they go outside of Sault Ste. Marie to promote the community. We've got somewhat common look and feel that can be used that can reinforce the brand and help promote Sault Ste. Marie.
Go ahead, Councillor Butland.
Yeah, since I don't fully comprehend what I understand the topic, but the explanation leaves me, I'm not sure about it at all. I think this is one, Councillor Fata, that we probably should do internally and not hire somebody to that amount of money to do something that we really can do ourselves, something that our local community can latch on to. Something has been in my craw for a little bit. Once Algoma Steel comes out of credit protection, I really say, hey, we need to celebrate steel. This is a steel city. That's a branding that the community should grasp and say, yes, there aren't many steel cities left. And if we have a prosperous steel mill, which I really believe we shall have, let's take that, let's run with it. and let's celebrate it. And that will promote pride. Sounds like self-serving, but we said, we're naturally, not this one, naturally gifted has been out there for quite a while. It's well known. Do we use it enough? The alternative energy capital of North America. Yeah, that may be self-serving. And it keeps going with those energy storage facilities, biggest in North America. Isn't that something that we can grab onto? Councillor Christian's idea with the Sioux Summit, people outside helping us and say, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you can do. Let's move forward. Internally, I think we can do a great job without hiring external help. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hollingsworth, and then Councillor Christian.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Ver. Just for clarification, you touched on it, but I just want to understand. So this company is going to be looking at our brand, our current brand, and the second objective, or the second piece that they're going to be helping us with, is promoting our community outside. So that could be throughout Canada, North America, or whatnot. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, that's correct.
Okay. So if I hear correctly, there's potential that the brand, as Councillor Myers has alluded to, our flag, our logo, and so forth, potentially could be changing. There might come back with a new look.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I think important to recognize no one's going to unilaterally change the brand. Obviously, this group, in concert with the community organizations, in concert with council and staff, are going to be involved in this process to look at, the company's going to look at what's there now. They're going to have some workshops with people in the community to help us better create this brand and the campaign around the brand. And then they'll also come up with some options for us to consider and be able to look at those options and determine, do we like one of them? Is this one that we feel, better represents Sault Ste. Marie? And then from that process, you narrow down to one. And then from there, they will help to put together an implementation plan and recommendations on how you roll out that brand. So it's a process that is community-based. It's a process that other communities, have you seen in the bylaw that's included with the contract, the schedule that's provided with the contract, that they've done with other communities. And it's a process that, it is a difficult one because it involves a lot of engagement if done correctly. And our hope is, I think to Councillor Buttman's point, it's difficult to have a brand that's three things: Steel City, alternative energy capital, naturally gifted. So the community has to rally around one of these brands in order to best promote itself. And that takes some time and that takes some effort to do. And it takes community members being engaged in that process in order to have something that people buy into at the end of the day. And I think that is the why you go out to an external firm that's an expert in this, that's done this with many other communities in order to come up with that. And that, as I mentioned, is part of the second step of this process that we're putting forward here today.
Okay. Just one other question. I'm not convinced that we have to go ahead and change your brand. I think what has been lacking is that we've done an okay job. I think there's so much more modern technology, new social media. I think what we're lacking is to understand how we do promote us outside of North America. For example, many people remember those feel-good commercials for Newfoundland, was it? That campaign, Newfoundland province, and everybody wanted to go to Newfoundland. That feel-good commercial that played with the ribbon and the girls and the colorful houses and stuff like that. So are you saying that if this company is successful, that they're going to potentially do campaigning of that magnitude?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, of that magnitude, really, that's supported by a budget of how much you're spending on your campaign.
Yeah.
But what we would have is the professional imagery logo, that all tagline that goes along with that. And that's what they will be coming up with through this effort.
Okay. I guess my comment is, I think I'd rather have some company, hopefully locally, work more on a campaign like Newfoundland has done versus changing our brand. And again, reemphasizing local company. The company that did do the RFP, that did, one of their largest accounts here is a major luxury resort that's known worldwide, and they manage and they create the creativity for that particular company, and they're located here in Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you.
So we have Councillor Christian.
Mayor, through you to Mr. Ver, you said that there are community groups that are working on this rebranding or have shown an interest in doing this. Can you identify some of those, please?
Sure, yeah. The folks we've had involved, we've had the EDC, Tourism Sault Ste. Marie, which is part of the EDC, the Innovation Center, Algoma University, Sault College. We've had folks from the Chamber of Commerce involved, and we have had, when we did the original sessions with Trajectory, we had reached out to Sioux Physician Recruitment. We had the major employers in town as well involved in this. And I think one of the things that we heard loud and clear from them was they were really hungry for the community to come up with this campaign, these visuals. They felt it important given some of the challenges the community is facing in, depending on their sector, either attracting employees, working with post-secondary institutions to attract students, and through our economic development agencies, better promoting the community. And so that's really what's behind this initiative.
So when we were discussing branding, did the topic of actually having them articulate what our brand is, and could anybody actually identify what the brand is? We're talking about branding. Did any of them come up with the branding of Sault Ste. Marie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, I think we heard different answers, which is, again, part of the reason to go through this exercise, right? To get alignment on what that brand is and have people bought in and using that moving forward.
So we had, essentially, with the list you've given us, we've had essentially the community leaders who struggle with articulating what our brand is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, correct. And I think there is that desire to refine that.
You see, I know it's an election year and we don't want to spend money, I get that. But we are at a turning point. We've worked hard to get to this point. We've got the future Sault Ste. Marie project in place. This all has to come back to council anyway. But any company that's involved in promoting themselves, and we're a company right now because we're in an entity, sometimes you have to take a different course. And I appreciate Councillor Butlin's point about, yes, we're a steel industry town, and that's fine, but I would suggest that it's time for us to continue on, advance, and make the steel plant part of our community, but I don't think that has to be necessarily our identity. And so I welcome the opportunity to look at it. I'm not convinced that what we get back is something that we necessarily have to accept, but I certainly think that as community leaders, we have to be open-minded. We can't just shake our heads and say, well, we don't need to change our brand, when half of the city, most of our community leaders can't even articulate what our brand is. So that should be a good indication that we should at least look at it. I think we need to be open-minded to it. And so, I try to be optimistic about the future. I see us heading in a new direction. I think the future Sault Ste. Marie project is the right thing to do, and I don't think it should be up to us to judge it with our own personal views. As was stated earlier, we're inserting our opinion when clearly it's just an opinion. It's clear that the community doesn't fully grasp what our brand is. So I think it starts there. Thank you.
Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Ver, regarding the $58,900, how much has come out of the NOHFC and the FedNor? Are they paying the whole shot, or is it some of its taxpayers' money?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni. The way the project is funding, there's a percentage put together by the different funding agency as well as the city. So the breakdown there is really, as the project expenses come in, we apply those to NOHFC and FedNor, and they reimburse us for their share of the project. So a portion of our contribution towards the future SSM project will go towards this branding initiative as well as NOHFC and FedNor.
Okay, thank you.
So Council, I think we're in a position to vote on this soon. I wanted to make a few comments. Councillor Fada, you've spoken to it. Do you have more questions?
Talking. Show some respect. Jesus.
Well, you did in consent.
I'm the one that pulled it, but I haven't spoken on it.
Okay, so go ahead.
Don't even go there.
We spent $750,000 when we gave that money to the Innovation Center, and we're still waiting for results from that money that was spent. I know that I'm a little off topic, but
well, just hold on. Not only a little off topic, but no, Councillor Fada, please.
No, but let me continue.
I'm not going to, because Councillor Fada, you just made a comment, and you said we spent $150,000 on the UP project, and we're still waiting for a result.
That was just my introduction. But now I'm done with that.
But on the night that the UP team came here and told you about 57 new jobs, like, were you in council at the beginning of this meeting? Were you sitting here?
I think I was, yeah.
Okay, well, they came here literally and said that they've landed a company with 57 jobs for our community. So what does the UP team have to do with this? Like, can you get to your point and so we can, I know there's an election, Councillor Fada, but like, I'd like to, finish this tonight.
I'd like to know, Mr. Mayor, maybe I'll ask you this question. How much of what we're doing with these studies, Roger Brooks, Scott Thornley, Corbin Design, why are we spending all these $58,000, $65,000? How much of that has to do with direction from future Sault Ste. Marie and the Community Adjustment Committee? How much of that influence or that direction that we're taking like sheep to spend this kind of money? Improve wayfinding signage.
Do you want me to answer the question?
You go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So a lot of what we're doing relates to our community consultation and our community plan. But I want to point out, Councillor Fada, that every stage of this process that has been reported out to this council and received as information, and nothing has moved forward without this council's engagement, cooperation, and support. So the wayfinding strategy was something that was certainly identified not only by people that participated in Project Sault Ste. Marie, but also by the Downtown Association and supported by the Downtown Association and by our planning staff. So a lot of these things, although they are supported by and encouraged by Future Sault Ste. Marie, have support elsewhere in the community, and that's what happens when you do a proper community plan and you engage stakeholders. The reality of what we're doing is we're acting on these things, Councillor Fada. We're making things happen, and we're doing things. And one of the things we need to do is improve and revitalize our downtown, and one of the ways to do that is wayfinding and signage. Roger Brooks was a cooperation between the city and the Downtown Association. And actually, that was very well received by a lot of the merchants on Queen Street, and I think you can say that Queen Street looked pretty good this summer. And Queen Street looked pretty good this summer because we took some action, and we did some really good things, and we made sure that we were conducive to business and patios, and there's lots of improvements. So if you want to keep on asking questions, Councillor Fada, if you want to keep on using this meeting to campaign, we can all do it.
Why do you keep bringing that up, Mr. Mayor?
Because that's what you're doing, Councillor Fada.
Oh, I'm sorry, but that's just your opinion. That's not mine.
Okay, what's your next question?
The people that are listening to my comments are making these very statements. We're studying things to death in this town, Mr. Tom Bear. We're studying things to death. Mr. Brooks, he does a study, and then he passes on the baton to Corbin Design. Here, you carry on now. We've spent $25,000 with Mr. Roger Brooks. Now we're going to spend $65,000 with Corbin Design. Why didn't Roger Brooks complete the project? What is this? We pass it on. This is first stage, second stage, third stage.
Councillor Fada, Roger Brooks doesn't do wayfinding strategies. He doesn't do. That's not his work. You're not going to hire an accountant to do a lawyer's work.
Mr. Mayor, we're spending money.
You're wildly off topic.
I know this is taking a few minutes, but excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Engage current residents and improve morale. Attract and engage prospective residents and students with the excellent quality of life and unique benefits of living in Sault Ste. Marie. Attract businesses to our community. We already are doing that. It's called the Economic Development Corporation. Would you not say that this is a bit of overlap, Mr. Mayor?
Not at all, Councillor Frada.
We're paying somewhere in the order of $58,000 so that we can have this study done. It makes no sense, Mr. Mayor. Call it what you want. It makes no sense.
Okay. So I'm going to speak to this, and we'll have the vote. Councillor, recorded vote. Council, this is the continuation of a project that we've been working on for quite a while. One of the things that we did here across the community, and I think Councillor Butland demonstrates this tonight, there's a lot of ways you could refer to us. We are naturally gifted, we are a steel city, we are the alternative energy capital of North America, and it's very difficult for community partners in the city to sell on a mixed message. And part of this process is identifying some of our landmark traits in our landmark narrative, and frankly it's exciting because it goes back beyond Francis Clerc, it goes back to our First Nations history, and really bringing that together and as a community deciding on a unified voice as we go forward. That's not to say that any current elements of our visual design will be excluded or won't be included on a moving forward basis. It's not to say that the flag would be changed or a logo would be changed. It's to be said that we need someone with an expertise, which Councillor Butland I don't think we have in City Hall, who does this with municipalities to give us more tools to sell our community, both internally and externally. There's some communities that are doing a great job of this. There's communities that have some great visuals and some great ways to communicate with the people they want to migrate there, businesses they want to migrate there, and we have to compete. We have to compete with other communities for people to live in our community. People are moving around the province. We need them to move here. We know, based on our planning department, that we need 11 to 12,000 people to migrate here between now and 2026 to keep the same activity levels of population. Well, we got to go out and we got to be doing those things. And it would be more effective if we're all selling from the same playbook. So this isn't a matter of the city changing its logo. It's a matter of getting community partners and leaders together to decide on a common message and voice and identity for our community, and hopefully one that our community partners will participate in and adopt. So we have similar messaging and visuals coming out of the university and coming out of the college and coming out of our employers. Last week I met with Tom Ver, and we had Sioux College, and we had Travis Anderson from Future Sault Ste. Marie, and we had our new employee with that does our labor market, Paul Sayers, and we went up to JD Arrow to have a follow-up meeting. JD Arrow, as you're aware, needs people, and they're looking for people. And their question to us was, what are you folks doing to sell this community and convince people to move here? So, we have an answer for that question, and we're working on it actively now, but we're working on different things to improve our tools to do that. You folks have already indicated that we can put this out to tender. The tender came back, and this is step 2. But it's not like everything's going to all of a sudden change, and you're not going to be part of that. Those of us that are here or not here are not going to be part of that on a going forward basis. I think it's a smart thing to do. I certainly support it. I think it's inaccurate to dismiss it as some kind of study. So we'll have a recorded vote. Madam Clerk will read the bylaw, and then we'll have a recorded vote.
A motion by Councillors Hupinen and Nero, resolved that bylaw 2018-202, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the summary of engagement agreement between the City and Scott Thornley Company Inc. for the project of development of visual identity and branding, be passed in open council this 24th day of September 2018. Councillor Turco. Councillor Fada. Councillor Christian.
For.
Councillor Krampotic.
For.
Councillor Hupinen.
For.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
For.
Councillor Grandinetti.
For.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Absent.
Councillor Nero.
For.
Councillor Bruni.
For.
Councillor Myers.
Against.
Councillor Butland.
Against.
Mayor Provenzano.
For.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. So, Madam Clerk, I think we're on bylaws now.
I have a motion by Councillors Hupinen and Nero, resolved that bylaws under item 11 of the agenda, under date September 24, 2018, Save and accept bylaw 2018-202, agenda item 11.1.12 be approved.
All in favor? Carried.
Can I have a motion by Councillors Hupenin and Turco, resolved that this council proceed into closed session regarding a potential disposition of property. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to continue to discuss the same matter without the need for a further authorizing resolution.
All in favor? Carried.
And a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Turco that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? Carried.